tell us a little bit about your role and what you enjoy most about the work that you do.
Well, that's such a great question. Really, when I think about my current role as a managing director at Huron, and I serve as a general manager for our work in Canada, what I'm able to do is take 40 plus years of experience in healthcare and leadership and really support health leaders, hospitals, health systems throughout North America, really up their game to really elevate performance. And ultimately what we work towards is making healthcare better for employees to work, physicians to practice medicine, and mostly for patients and families to receive care. So, I'm so honored to work with some of the greatest leaders in healthcare, the leaders who just will not stop at status quo, who want to push the envelope. That's a joy. But if I was to say the most joy I get out of my work is that in this role, the work that we do really drives results, leads to outcomes. And for many, many years, I chased that process improvement where we were always doing so much, not knowing what it would result in. But our work clearly drives results, and that gives me great joy.
I love that, the whole emphasis on accountability.
Absolutely.
And can you share a little bit about that journey, from that frontline nursing role all the way now to a very different role? I'm not sure if you ever imagined a career like this before.
Well, I definitely didn't. And it's been interesting. And I coach a lot of young up-and-coming professionals, many women. And, I just think that in my career, there were moments when I thought, my career is leading me, I'm not leading it, because I was always passionate, committed, and loyal and did a good job. So opportunities came to me fairly early in my career. And over my career, I've made about 5 really significant career moves, which, were big moves out of delivering healthcare to the pharmaceutical industry, where I was involved in research and population health, to the not-for-profit sector, to the e-health sector. And, it's interesting because I once sat at a coffee break with a cardiologist who saw me moving in my career early, and he was older than me. And at that time, he looked me in the eyes and he said, Bonnie, I just want to give you some advice. In your future careers, whatever decisions you make sure you're making them because there's something exciting or you want to achieve versus you want to run away from something that's not working. And I always remember his words so well. And the other thing is, as I coach others, when opportunity knocks, it may never seem to be the right time, but I was always ready to risk and take the challenge. So it's being prepared, doing a good job where you are, and listening when opportunity knocks. That's sort of what I've done over the course of my career. And I always tell people the best way to move along in your career is just do a great job where you are.
As you mentioned, you're very results focused, outcomes driven, and you have something called the Evidence-Based Leadership Framework. So can you briefly describe that framework and maybe a recent success story that you've seen or you want to share with our audience?
Absolutely. So in healthcare, we all hear about and are familiar with evidence-based medicine. If we do something that we know works based on the evidence, we can predictably get results or outcomes. And so evidence-based leadership is very much that. We've taken the evidence base of leadership and management over many, many decades and packaged it in an evidence-based leadership framework. And so we know that there are evidence-based practices that if leaders execute skillfully, that we can decrease variation of practice to increase predictability of results. And so it's a framework that's very simple to implement in theory, but in practice, it's changing human behavior. And so we all know that that can be challenging. When we implement evidence-based leadership, the foundation is getting your goals aligned and having the least amount of goals to give you the biggest impact. We find in healthcare, we'll go into an organization and there may be 30 to 40 goals. Well, we know if we've got too many priorities, nothing is a priority.
Right.
So, we try to really bring in the number of goals. And then the practices that we coach, it's fine if I go off and get trained in it as one person and come back and implement, I'll be doing a great job. But when an organization trains its leaders together to all execute in these evidence-based practices, you can begin to see change occurring really quickly. And so, there are many examples that I could provide, but one of the most impressive examples, it wasn't a Canadian example, but we've got many like it. I use this one because it's a very large system in the US with 40 plus hospitals. Patient experience was their number one priority. Everyone knew it's all hands on deck patient experience. And it wasn't really until the CEO of the system and their board chair both had some negative experiences that became the case. We were engaged to work with them, and we were told we don't work with consultants because we've got the engine, we've got the power to do it, but we've not been able to achieve this one outcome, which is our priority. And it was interesting when we went to one of our conferences, because we put off these amazing conferences, the chief nurse and the chief operating officer were with me at a session. And when we came out, they looked at me and went, we just had the biggest aha moment. We have been putting all of our efforts on patient experience. And in that, we have missed the employee engagement piece. And until we get there, the downstream of patient experience is not going to be realized. And so there's pacing and sequencing with this evidence-based model as well that drives results. That system in the US of more than 40 hospitals in a matter of 9 months with execution excellence were able to drive their patient experience results by 20%. That's almost unheard of. But it was that power horse that they brought to this and that vision and drive with the evidence-based practices that were so powerful.